Yes.
Hi, it is now 7 p.m. on Monday, December 16th. I'll call this meeting of ANC 5F to order. We'll begin with a roll call. Commissioner Hurst,
Present.
Commissioner Sani,
Present.
Commissioner Williams is not present to the best of our knowledge. Commissioner Galvin is online. We'll just
Oh, he's saying he's not hearing me.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear us?
Okay, I just can't hear you.
Oh,
I'll try my phone.
Okay.
can anyone else hear us?
If anyone can hear us, would you mind writing into the chat, writing to the host?
Or waving your hand?
Oh, well, because they don't have the ability to
Oh,
put on their
cool.
camera. Okay, great, excellent. Dana says he can hear us. Okay, excellent. So we were at Commissioner Galvin, who is present. Commissioner Anderson is myself and I am present. Commissioner Bishop Henchman
Present.
and Commissioner Pinkney is not present. So with 5 out of 7 commissioners, we have quorum, and this meeting is now in session. First order of business is the approval of the agenda. Are there any commissioners wishing to add any items to the agenda? Commissioner Hurst?
I would like to consider the zoning case after hearing it for Renata to.
You're adding both. You're adding both this one and this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to add both the Renata BZA case 21216 and BZA case 21216 to the action agenda
And the presentation.
Yes.
Great, excellent. So I think currently the BZA case Renata is listed under the consent agenda. You're asking to move it to the.
Just to add it, because I literally added it, but we have not
I see.
actually added
I
it.
see.
Okay.
But I know it's printed on the consent agenda. Commissioner Hurst mentioned you wanted it on the action agenda. Do you have a preference?
I think consent agenda will be fine.
Okay, great, excellent. Great. Any objections to that?
No resolution.
Oh,
So-
right, because there's no.
If it is actually already on the consent agenda, then I don't have a resolution, I think.
What action would you want the ANC to take?
I would want to have the possibility that we would vote to approve, to support the amendments that they're requesting as described.
Okay, great. Okay, so the action would be support ANC 5F support for BZA case 21216.
The requested relief and designate Commissioner Hurst to speak for the commission.
Certainly.
Okay.
Great, excellent. Okay, any objections to that? All right, with none noted, those items have been added. They are currently already represented on the printed and electronic versions of the agenda as item 7A and 7D. Any other items that commissioners are wishing to add? All right, with none noted, any objections to approving the agenda as is? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Great, so adopted. First item of business is the approval of the minutes, Commissioner Bishop Henchman.
Yes, thank you. I circulated copies of a minutes from our November 18th meeting. I got back one change, which I incorporated and then recirculated. It was just to add the slides from the Verizon people. And so I moved that we adopt, and I got no further comments, so I moved that we adopt the minutes of the November 18th meeting as circulated.
Great.
A second.
Seconded, great. All in favor, say aye.
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 All in
Aye.
favor, all opposed, say no. So with none noted, they are approved.
And then additionally, we had a special meeting on December 3rd. I circulated minutes for that. I got no comments, so I moved that we adopt those minutes as circulated.
Excellent. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. With no opposition, so adopted. All right, next item of business is officer reports and commissioner announcements. I'll go ahead to Commissioner Hurst for treasurer's report. We've had some unfortunate developments, so I will let you get started.
Sure. I'll start off with just the basic bookkeeping of the house. We have an available balance of $38,390.97, which includes only one transaction, which is a disbursement from the DC government of $4,702.97. We have had we've been doing our banking with Industrial Bank, and they sent us our most recent statement, and it had changed the name of instead of saying 5F ANC, it now says the name of a person, and it is not a person that's related to any one of us. So they asked us to investigate, and it is indeed a person who is related to a different ANC that is also banking at Industrial Bank. It does not speak extremely highly of Industrial Bank when they're making changes on our statements, and when then after that they also froze the account for a little while, so we couldn't get our statements. I do support them investigating and making sure that they have everything straight, and now we once again have access to our bank statements. Didn't love that it happened. So yes.
Are we able to assert that there were no withdrawals or anything like that?
There were no withdrawals and no transactions made at all, except for the DC government
Yes.
paying us.
The
So
person involved seems to be an employee in the CFO's office, so it's not entirely a random person,
Yeah.
although his name should not be on the account.
exactly.
As we were discussing prior to the meeting, it seems like unfortunately this has happened to multiple other AMC's accounts as well. So we were not alone in being affected by this, but it is certainly worrisome. I think we had chosen to go with this bank because this is a local bank and it worked with AMC's in the past. But given these unfortunate developments, I think I personally am supportive of looking at other banking options. Commissioner Bishop Hirsch had reached out to some other AMCs as well. There was some challenges with being a new AMC and getting recognition to open a bank account. It's more complicated than I think maybe anticipated, but it looks like AMCs have successfully, once they have an account established, successfully transferred things over. So we're looking into those options.
Yeah, I forget which commission. I can look it up if somebody.
4B, I think.
1B
Yeah.
sounds right. Moved from industrial to PNC recently and shared the name with their contact. So I would move. I think we need to authorize the picking of the bank.
Yeah.
I think that's accurate. So I would move to authorize the treasurer and the chair, I guess, to explore and effectuate a transfer from Industrial Bank to another banking institution.
I would support that. I do also want to point out that it is the 16th of December, and on January 1st, there is a really great new commissioner for 5F01. So there needs to be an election for a treasurer, and it could be that 14 days during the holidays is enough to try and make this banking switch happen. I'm willing to try and start working on it, but it also could be that this will need to be the next treasurer's first task, or could be.
Great. Well,
Was that you seconding it?
Yeah, all those words did indeed mean
Okay.
I second
All right.
that.
Great. Any objections to authorizing the treasurer and the chair to exploring and putting into action a move to another bank? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? I don't hear any opposition, so moved. Great. Any other officers wishing to make a report? Or any commissioners wishing to make a report or announcement? Because I have an announcement. I think recently there have been some significant water outages in Eckington, including on Thanksgiving Day, which was quite disruptive. And I think last week as well, there was a significant water outage. I reached out to DC Water to I think especially on Thanksgiving Day, when everyone was at home, it happened right around 11 or noon as people are starting to prep for Thanksgiving dinner. So it was quite disruptive. But I think the frustration also came with not getting an update about the outage. It wasn't on the website. It was really hard given the holiday to get in touch with DC Water. They were able to take swift action once they were notified and kind of in the loop, but for part of the neighborhood, but then a significant part of the neighborhood did not get that updated kind of water service restored until later. The response that we've gotten is that because of kind of older infrastructure that as they're doing repairs, this may happen. I've been in touch with them informally, but hoping to be in touch more formally about at least getting a better update system to neighbors when this is happening, so that it's not as disruptive, or at least also when there is disruptions that like water and delivery is happening or something like that. So just wanted to address that. Any other officers or commissioners wishing to make announcements? Commissioner Galvin?
Yeah, I'll just mention on the DC water main break, I did notice today there was a water main break as well at 3rd and Channing, which seemed to affect a pretty large area as well. I've heard from a couple neighbors about it. It looks like it was going to be an 8-hour repair. So hopefully that was around noon. So hopefully it's done this evening to serve. They were emptying a fire hydrant into the middle of the road, which was a huge amount of water. But I think that should be back to normal here shortly.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Galvin. Commissioner Wishkowski.
Yes, thank you. I have reached out to all of our committee members, except for commissioners, to find out basically on my own, for my own edification, whether they want to continue serving on each of the committees in the new term, which starts January 2nd. I have a list of people who've replied yes. A couple of people have replied no, mainly because they're moving or they have other obligations in their life. Haven't heard from a lot of people, but I do have that information and can circulate it. Yeah, and I raised this also to just ask any committee members who haven't yet replied, who do want to continue serving on our committees, to let us know. Because I imagine early in the new year, one of our things will be populating committees. So we're just trying to start a little early.
And if you're interested.
And if you're interested and are not currently serving on a committee or want to serve on a different committee.
Could you circulate to the committee chairs, which people did not hear back from at all? That
Yep.
way I think there could be a secondary, maybe more directed person.
Certainly, I'll do that.
Excellent. Any other announcements? Okay, excellent. Moving on. So next item of business is announcements from representatives of elected officials. I'm trying to see if anyone from the mayor's office is on the Zoom. We don't see that. So Sam, the time is yours. We will make you a host in just a moment. Give us a second. All right, you should have.
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, hello, I'm Sam with Councilmember Parker's office. I'm doing triple duty tonight, so I'm kind of bouncing between different meetings, but wanted to share some really brief things. I mean, tomorrow's the last DC Council meeting of the year, and there's a lot on the docket, a lot of kind of I didn't think they would be quite as controversial, but it seems like there's lots of debates on lots of different things. But that is the final session of the year. And if you want to watch it always, you can do so on DC Council website or sign up for the Zoom. The council member also is looking forward to the announcement of the preliminary committee assignments from the chairman's office sometime this week, I believe Wednesday or Thursday. So we're excited to see what what committee the council member ends up with. I think the other big thing to share is we had planned for a holiday party, the Ward 5 holiday party this Thursday, but we did have to cancel / postpone it. We're going to do something in the new year not sure exactly what, but there were some issues with the venue. So I wanted to make sure people knew that don't show up to Dock 5 this Thursday evening because there isn't going to be a holiday party. The council, though, is holding their own holiday party, which I think some members of my team will be attending that same night at Ivy City Smokehouse. So that's another fun opportunity. I feel like there's a lot of things going on. I don't know exactly what the right thing to focus on, but happy to take questions. And if anything comes up, I'll make sure to share it as well. So any questions y'all have?
We'll go to commissioners first, but if members of the public would like to ask Sam's questions, please put your hand up and we'll kind of go along. Commissioner first.
I haven't been tracking everything, but I do really want to know from a mildly personal stake, what is happening with the teachers' pay increase that needs to be voted on by the DC City Council?
That's a good call. I remember you had sent something to the council member at ZCB and he had responded that he would check on it. Am I remembering that right?
I do believe, yes.
Got it. Okay. I have not heard any other updates on that, so I will put that down in my notes from this meeting to make sure to follow up on that. And I will let you know what I hear.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Commissioner Galvin?
Hey Sam, thanks so much as always for joining tonight. Not even triple dutying it. I heard about maybe it's a controversial one, maybe it's not. That there was some vote on some moped regulations that was up for a council vote. Was that today or is that happening tomorrow? Can you give any background on that?
Yeah. So I'm just writing this note. So I don't know any specific moped on regulation. I know that there was conversation at one point about it a couple months ago that Nadell was talking about.
Yeah, maybe it was delivery drivers in particular, or not delivery drivers, but that industry. Yeah.
Yeah. So that bill is up tomorrow. There's
Okay.
been a lot of controversy about it, though it hasn't really focused about mopeds. That's more been on, DoorDash has been calling our office or sending people, anyone who orders DoorDash gets a call from DoorDash to say they're trying to take your privacy away, and then it sends them to us because of the data that was required. So there's been concerns about the privacy of it, although a lot of that has been clarified and it wasn't going to be foiable anyway. A number of the data requests have been taken out. My sense is DoorDash is also just, doesn't want to create a regulatory framework or doesn't like the regulatory framework that they propose. Although I think there's some legitimate concerns about is this the best thing to do? Is this the right way to go about making a regulatory framework? Is this the data we want to be asking for? That's been most of the focus is on those kinds of specifics. It would require some form of, I think moped drivers will now have, like any other driver, if this passes, will have to have trade dress. So either a DoorDash sticker on their car or a jacket or something like that. That's the main way I've heard it. But I think what I've heard from researchers who've been pushing for it has been we need to create some sort of regulatory framework so that the department can start to issue regulations around different ways that people might be delivering, getting a better sense of what is the effect of these apps on traffic, on safety, on anything else. So that's what I've been told from kind of people who are supportive of the bill is kind of the main point of it.
Got it. Thank you. I'll just put my 2 cents if it's worth anything. I think it would be helpful to have vehicles, not bicycles necessarily, but vehicles with motors on them to have to be registered, and make sure that they have the right safety and a way to track them as part of their as part of their job, right?
They do have to be registered with the city, period. If it has if it's a larger than whatever, most of the mopeds are supposed to have regular registration to be able to drive, period. And we've seen that the enforcement isn't necessarily there from MPD for moped or for car fake plates, which I know there's also a thing tomorrow.
Yeah. Does that,
For drivers.
sorry to spend a lot of time on this, is that for under 50 cc? Because I thought that there wasn't regulations for that, but maybe the council passed something recently. And so the reason why I bring this
so
up,
it is, but
Yeah.
most of those are not under 50 cc. Even if they have a little thing that says 49 cc, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily under 50 cc.
Yeah. Okay.
But I will say I think the parts of creating a registry of drivers were taken out because from pushback from DoorDash.
Okay. Okay. So the reason why I bring this up is because the amount of pollution that comes from those lower CC vehicles is pretty extreme. And if I'm walking down the street and one passes me, it smells really bad. And I think about children and families who walk the streets all the time and running the mopeds while they're standing, or just sitting on the sidewalk. So I hope you guys will consider something like that.
Yeah, I'll definitely take that back.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Great. I thought I had seen a hand. Okay, P. Curitan, we will recognize you now.
Hi there. Good
Yep.
evening. Thanks for taking my call. Happy holidays. I am a Ward 5 resident of over 20 years and a landlord. And I want to congratulate or thank Council Member Parker's office, in particular Sam, for helping greatly with some tenant issues or just helping navigate them. But I have a specific question about not challenging, but better understanding the way that DC has arranged the approach for landlords now, both from business licensing to getting accepted in terms of the special payments for people with vouchers to, et cetera, et cetera. It's like navigating a roaring river that nobody seems to be able to provide an answer to multiple different questions. And I have just been so frustrated as a landlord trying to figure out what is going on and how to get anything done. And I can't call Sam every day, and he certainly doesn't have time to help me with every single issue. So I guess I'm asking, is there a person, an ombudsman, somebody that we can go to with issues that arise that are for small business owners and about productivity and communications in the DC government realm?
Well, hello, Miss Phyllis. Yes. What you're bringing up is much bigger than just landlords too. I hear the same thing from tenants all the time, that navigating the complex web of players and power centers and, oh, well, if you get this and you have to go here, you have to talk to this person. Oh, really, you should try these 3 things because you don't know which one's going to actually work out. I totally with you. We haven't designed our systems well. I think we, especially with housing, like it's not like there's no one-stop shop for anything. And so I definitely get your frustration. And what I've unfortunately found is, with each reform comes a new layer of complexity and gatekeeping instead of simplicity and clarity. And so I'm totally with you on that. I don't necessarily have the answers to that. And I do think we need more buy-in from the executive side, as well as more creativity and willingness to take some punches from the council side, I'm sure, as well. Because if you really wanted to streamline things, you're going to be getting rid of some set of people who their careers is about managing the current bureaucracy, for better or for worse. So that's like kind of an abstract answer to what you're saying. In terms of housing and support for landlords, I know we've talked about this extensively. Most of the kind of housing support systems is for folks is for folks who, who generally are considered to have less power in the situation, which is tenants.
Right.
But I definitely have heard from you and other small landlords that we need a better place, at least for there to be clarity and resources, even if it isn't quite the level of support or financial support as we give for tenants. So I definitely hear that. And again, though, I wouldn't want to just create another new office that would be resourced and blah, blah, blah. So, I do think there are advocacy groups that advocate for small landlords, although I've heard maybe they don't advocate for the small ones quite as much as they say. At least I think that's what you told me before.
Right.
So, I think those are all good points. And I think I can definitely take it back to my housing staff to see what.
Uh-oh, did we lose him?
I think we may have lost him, but it
Okay.
does we'll recognize him again when he is back, but it does sound like he will be in touch with more
Yes.
details.
And I think I'll just put together some bullet points and send it to him, and that'll help. Thanks very much.
Okay, great. So I know Sam said that I'm sure he will try to hop on if he can. I know he also mentioned that he has to jump to some other meetings. So in the interest of time, why don't we go ahead and move ahead and then if he's back, we will recognize him again if there are additional questions, but I don't think I saw any other hands. So the next item of business is public comment. So for those of you who are new to ANC 5F meetings, we have this section. You are very welcome to speak about any issue, whether that affects the community, whether it is an item that we are speaking about later in the agenda or not. If it is engaging with a specific item of the agenda, that is on the action agenda, I just ask that you maybe wait so that we've had time to kind of have a more cohesive discussion about something on the action agenda. But otherwise, the floor is open. I will remind everyone that we've allotted 10 minutes for this section and 2 minutes per speaker, which we can extend if needed. So if you'd like to speak, please either physically raise your hand or use the raise hand feature on Zoom. Just, everyone's a little shy, so I'll give it a couple seconds. Okay. With none noted, we will move on to the next item of the agenda. So the next item is the presentation regarding BZA case 21216. The floor is yours. I think for technology purposes, we ask that you come up forward. We'll direct the camera towards you all. These things are mics, so
Great.
point it towards you.
And we emailed a digital copy, but we also have
Okay, excellent.
hard
Thank you so much.
copies.
The link to the digital copy of the presentation is linked in our agenda for this item, so you can follow on that.
Shall I leave it alone, you guys?
Yes.
Is this a good place to be?
We get basically from the corner.
I'm gonna move off camera so that you all have more space.
Is it okay to sit or?
Yeah, you're welcome to sit or stand, whatever you'd like. I'm gonna move over here just to give you all some space. Be off camera. Would you like to sit?
I'll pull up one of these. That way you don't have to. Hi, everyone in the room, online. I am Tasha Boone. Something over here, sorry. I am originally from North Carolina. I came here in 1997 to attend Georgetown, caught Potomac fever, and never left. I purchased the property at 5th Street in 2007 and have watched the neighborhood grow and change. I'm really excited about Trader Joe's, just want to throw that out there. And happy to be a part of this change. I've been working with the team at All Studio on this design. So happy to present that to you guys. I canvassed the neighborhood and talked to the neighbors. They were thinking I was canvassing for something else, so a lot of people didn't answer the door. But I left letters of notification to all of them, and I've received 5 letters of support, so I've added that to the BZA application. And the hearing is February 5th. So with that, I will turn it over to Mark and his team.
Great. Thanks, everyone. I'm Mark Barnes with L Studio. This is
Hi, I'm Sarah Beth.
Sarah Beth, our associate at L Studio. And we've been working with Tasha for about a year now, off and on, looking at the properties. And so these are properties at 5th and Franklin Northeast. If you're not familiar, there's two of the properties are sort of a dog leg or a L-shaped lot. And that was one of the first things that we're seeking relief on. We're trying to re-subdivide those lots so that they are rectilinear in shape as opposed to a more complicated shape. And in so doing, we're going to need to request a variance from zoning for because two of the lots don't comply with the minimum lot area or lot width. But we're making them better, and we're making one of the lots a conforming lot. So we're talking about 3 properties in total, and we will be developing each of the properties to have a second unit. So currently each property has 1 unit. We will be making an additional unit on each, so there'll be a total of 6 units. Page 4 lists all the kind of the relief that we're requesting. For 2 of the properties, we're seeking relief to get up to 70% lot occupancy. And for all 3 properties, we are seeking relief from the 10-foot rule from the most adjacent neighbor. We're also seeking relief for rear yard setback. And then finally, we're seeking relief so that we can have an enclosed stair from the upper unit to a rooftop, access to a rooftop space on the roof. And so the majority of the building we are proposing is below or within the allowable height limit, but those for rooftop penthouse access go a little bit above the height limit. And then one of them also we're seeking relief from the setback, the penthouse setback. And then we're also in the first property, and I'll kind of explain these as we go, they get separated into 2 penthouses as opposed to 1. So technically you're only supposed to have 1 penthouse. We're asking for relief to get to 2 because it provides a better contiguous stair vertically as opposed to sort of squishing the stairs together as you get up above to the rooftop. Page 5, you can see the existing conditions of 418 Franklin Street, 422 Franklin Street, and 2804 5th Street, with the 2 lots that wrap around the corner property. And you can also see one of the things that you may notice if you walked around the neighborhood, that the fences, you would never know that these property lines are established the way they are because the fences are in fact rectilinear shapes, which is what most people would suspect. There is a shared access to get to the alley for trash pickup, which we are going to maintain. So all units will have alley access to do trash removal. Page 6 just shows the comparison of existing conditions and then what we're proposing. One of the reasons we're requesting rear yard relief and lot coverage relief is so that we can get some access to those units in the rear in a more efficient way, and I'll explain that. It also just, if we were to abide by the existing lots, it creates for some strange shaped configurations and some very deep units, which don't allow for a lot of light to penetrate the center of the units. Page 7 shows the proposed site plan where we are with the re-subdivided lots for 418, 422, and 2804, making 3 even relatively simple rectilinear shapes. And then you can see that we're maintaining access to units from Franklin Street and then also creating access to the units on the 5th and Franklin Street side as well. Trash, we're locating trash storage along the rear, and so all units will have access to trash storage, and then they can continue to utilize the existing connection to the alley to the west. Page 7 just shows some of the rationale for the architectural kind of modifications that we are proposing. You'll notice that there are bays that we are proposing in public space along Franklin Street, which are very in keeping with the neighborhood, and with other areas, other blocks where there are bays, and we're following the guidelines for public space. The second diagram you'll see there shows a little break between the existing building and a new unit. And that break allows for a kind of shared access. So there's an entry point there for both of those units, but it also allows for a way to get up to units 422 and 418. So there creates a little bit of, there's will be more natural light in the center of these units, and also just more of a what we're calling a micro community, so that the residents who live here kind of get to know each other. They pass each other, going in and out, and so it's not completely isolated. We also brought a model just to show existing conditions and context. So 5th Street in this direction, Franklin Street in this direction. And so we've just wanted to be, we're looking at the existing conditions of neighboring buildings, and this is kind of very much in keeping with the size and shape of other buildings in the general vicinity. This is the proposed addition, and this is the existing condition. So it's a 2-story, 3 2-story attached houses. We're adding a 3rd floor within the site, the height limit, and then proposing rooftop access. You can see on page 10 in perspective, as seen from 5th and Franklin across the street, an existing condition, and then page 11 shows the proposed developments that we're proposing as part of the BZA application. And that does show that 3rd floor addition, and also you can just see barely peeking above the guardrail there is the penthouse, the penthouse enclosure. So those are those little boxes that you see there. And then the last page 12 is just a summary of relief requested. Happy to answer any questions anyone has.
I have a question to start. So the break within the buildings, it's not it's an enclosed stairwell essentially. It just doesn't have housing in that break.
It doesn't have housing in that break, and what we were thinking is that would be kind of a vestibule. So it could be a place for package storage for when folks aren't home. It would be an enclosed stairway for the units on 418, for the upper level units of 418 and 422.
I guess, I don't really understand how it gets to, I guess, the 418, the unit. So it's 418, 422, and then 5. Does this vestibule cut through all the way?
It does.
I see. Okay,
yes,
got it.
It does.
Okay. Does the neighboring building, the one that one, have any alley access or any entrances on the side?
They don't have entrances on the side. They do have rear yard, so they have access to the yard. They have their rear yard and then access to the alley in that direction. Yeah.
I think Commissioner Galvin has a question.
Sure.
Commissioner Galvin?
Yeah. So the break that's there behind 2804, I guess that back area. I'm looking at page 8. I guess it's the lighter blue on the northeast section that you're looking at. So to the right of the yellow, or I guess above the yellow, depending on how you look at it. What is that? Is that a separate unit itself?
Page 8 shows some of the variations between different massings that we've studied and critical In page 7, it shows the break a bit more clearly.
Okay.
So, and then if you want to take a look at that, I'm happy
Yeah,
to.
yeah, I have it open now. Okay. So, so the break essentially goes under, so there's an upper, I guess, what's right in front of the trash bin storage? What is that space? Is that a property? Or sorry, is that a occupiable space?
Yes, the blue, you're referring to the blue volume to the,
You might be looking at the site plan.
oh.
Just remember the
are you,
page.
oh, right, there's 2 page 7s, I'm sorry. You're looking at the site plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So right where the trash bin storage is, just below that square there,
Yes,
what is that
that's
portion of the property? That's a unit.
That's
Okay,
the second unit of 2804
got it. Okay.
units per lot. So yes, that's in a sense, a standalone unit.
Got it. And if I heard correctly, so the penthouse includes the roof deck, is that correct?
That's
There's a roof
correct.
deck on each property essentially, right?
On each property.
And is
yes.
it a shared roof deck with the lower level or just the upper
It-
level?
Only, the roof decks are only for the upper level units. The lower level units get kind of front yard, and then there's a shared courtyard that they all can utilize in the rear of 418 and 422.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
And then my only other comment, and this isn't really zoning related, but I'm a big fan of it, is trees, making sure that we have kind of adequate coverage for trees on, fortunately, there's a lot of green space here, but I think a lot of times architects and developers put, crepe myrtles there, and I'm like, we gotta do something a little bit better, especially for the view shed and for, urban heat island effects. So and hopefully you guys will consider something like that as well.
100% agree. We haven't onboarded a landscape architect yet. We wanted to get the zoning approvals more further along, but one of the things we really like about these properties is all the green space that exists, and we're trying to. It's a big part of the selling point. I think it makes it just a really wonderful place. So yes, trees are an important part of that. Will be part of a public space application as well.
Great, thanks so much.
Yeah, of course.
Any other questions? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? We'll take some questions from the public. If anyone has any questions, please use the raise your hand feature or raise your hand in public or in person.
I do have one
Yeah,
question. This is not what I'm here for, so just take it, whatever it's worth. I'm curious about the community amenities that you all are offering for the surrounding neighbors. Are there, besides the sort of trees and things like that, are there any other sort of community amenities that you're planning for the neighborhood?
I don't think my brain has gotten that far yet. It is possible. I mean, in talking to some of the neighbors, they were just excited about the changing of the neighborhood because I think it was built in 1949 or something. But yeah, I haven't really thought about how to bring the other people on Fifth Street into it.
I guess one additional question. I know you had mentioned that some of the structures were in line with some of the other buildings. I mean, increased density, I think I'm always supportive of that, but if you could just speak to like neighbor support for any other neighbor support or support, or disapproval, or like any other feedback from neighbors. I just don't know how to speak English today. But any other neighbor feedback or just also kind of how that density lot, it looks like from the model, it looks like the buildings across also have some density. So just to kind of speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, one of the buildings we were sort of looking at from a scale, this is a relatively newer development, this sort of catty corner across the street. But there are so in terms of scale, it'll be similar to that in terms of it being a 3-story. There are a lot of, like, these buildings are technically 2-story, but the basement is a above grade, so they're sort of 2.5. So which is why our proposal is similar in height in terms of the main bulk of the building is similar in height to some of those buildings. So we're, you know, these are built in the buildings that we're working with were built in the 30s. They're relatively small row houses. They don't have where you in some DC row houses you might have a higher floor to floor or a higher ceiling height. These are not as grand, so to speak, but so it's allowing us to, you know, maintain a scale that I think works with the existing conditions.
Can I ask specifically whether you have support or a letter of support from 2806? I feel like that's the one unit where you're encroaching into their space, maybe more than others, building closer to them.
Unfortunately, that unit was for sale. I think it just sold in October, so no. I did talk to a lot of people along this street, and again, they're all similarly situated houses. They were pretty amenable. The ones on this side have been recently renovated, so of course they're like, please continue the renovation.
Continue to renovate, yeah.
And then I think I do have a letter from the neighbor here. I think Bottomer is her last name. She actually lives in New York and sent me a letter from New York, so I'm highly appreciative. She bought that house 100 years ago and converted it to 3 stories. It's now rental property. So she was like, I co-sign on whatever you're doing. So I've gotten some support from the neighbors, and these are kind of in process of slowly being upgraded by each of the neighbors.
Yeah.
Following up though, like, were there any messages of disapproval from, like, let's say those within 200 feet, or largely?
I didn't get any. I got a lot of no responses when I went to their doors, but no one actively was like, no, not here for it.
I think when we've had similar projects presented, often sunlight study, especially when lot occupancy becomes, when we've talked about exceptions for lot occupancy, I guess this is north, I don't know, just the sunlight, often we were presented with sunlight studies. I was just wondering if it's particularly for 2806 with this additional kind of the broadening of the lot, or more occupancy of the lot, whether that affects their sunlight at all.
Yeah, and so we were trying to be mindful of that. It's one of the reasons we maintained instead of seeking, you know, a rear yard setback relief and going all the way to the edge of the lot, we're maintaining a 6-foot space, and then they also have a side yard, which is nice. So there is a little bit of a buffer between the 2 properties, so that you know, that'll help with light getting back into that unit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. I don't see any additional hands, so thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you for your time.
Of course.
Yeah. Now we're all cozy. Okay, excellent. So the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. So for those of you who are new to ANC 5F meetings, the consent agenda is essentially a logistical parliamentary meeting efficiency tool that we use, where we place the items that we think that there is enough support from commissioners to or we've discussed them previously. We kind of think that the majority of commissioners are in alignment, so that we can kind of vote on them as a slate. Any commissioner can request to remove any of these items and move them to the action agenda so that we have time to discuss and debate. But currently on the consent agenda is the ANC 5F 2024 annual report, the ANC 5F response to NOI 24301 TESD, the resolution calling for accessible sidewalks in Edmund Street Northeast, and then the Commissioner Bishop Henchman, would you be able to repeat the verbiage? We decided it was the support and appoint Commissioner Hurst to be the
I can read it.
yeah, absolutely, that'd be great, please.
Be it resolved that ANC 5F supports the requested relief in BZA 21216, parentheses 418-2422 Franklin Street Northeast and 2804 5th Street Northeast, end parentheses, and requests this support be accorded great weight And be it further resolved that the sponsor of this resolution is directed to transmit a copy of this resolution to appropriate recipients and is authorized to represent themselves as speaking on behalf of the 5F Commission and advocating for the aforementioned.
Thank you so much. So with that said, I will turn to my fellow commissioners to see if there are any items that they would like to remove from the consent agenda.
Small procedural question on
Yes.
these. Specifically in this case where Commissioner Harris did mention that we'll have a new commissioner seated in 5F01
Yes.
in January. Is there any allotment we need to make here to either, like,
I see.
if this process extends beyond to, as an ANC, say we will issue a new resolution or some other follow-up?
That's a good point.
Great point.
Maybe your real question is there a volunteer willing
be a joint sponsor.
to be, yeah.
Yes.
As the neighboring commissioner and just on their side of Sixth, I'm glad to be a secondary co-sponsor, so at least there's some continuity there. But
That's a great point. Thank you, Commissioner Sani. So that'll be, is there any?
Without objection.
Without objection?
Yeah.
Are there any objections? With none noted, we will amend the resolution to also allow for Commissioner Sani to be that go-between. Excellent.
I would like to pull the response to the NOI off the consent agenda, mainly to talk about how ridiculous the NOI is.
All right, excellent. Great. So we have 3 items on the consent agenda. Any additional items wishing to be pulled? All right, excellent. So we will go ahead and go to a roll call vote. So again, we are voting on all 3 items at once. Commissioner Hurst?
Aye.
Commissioner Sani?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams is not present. Commissioner Galvin?
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson is myself and I vote aye. Commissioner Bishop Henson?
Aye.
Commissioner Pinckney is not present. So with a vote of 5 to 0 to 0, this motion passes. And the resolutions or the actions have been adopted. Moving on to the action agenda, we have 2 items on the agenda. Item A is the ANC 5F resolution regarding our January meeting. This is again kind of a procedural tool because we have to pass a resolution to adopt our meeting schedule each year. We will have some new commissioners joining who will be sworn in, as Commissioner Hurst mentioned, at the beginning of the year. I'm sure that we will have some debate as we align calendars, but we need to kind of initially adopt a January meeting. Commissioner Bishop Henchman has put forth January 20th.
Which I'm not wedded to, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Floor is yours.
That is just
Yes.
whatever we're on. Are we on 3rd Monday right now?
Yes,
Fourth
we're currently
Monday?
on 3rd Monday.
Whatever we are now,
Yeah.
that's what it is in
Yeah,
January.
absolutely.
It's also a holiday
Yeah.
for Inauguration Day, which obviously is
MLK
more of
as
a
well.
holiday in Washington DC than it is in other places. So it's probably actually not a good idea for us to meet on that date.
Yeah.
I did email our commissioners-elect just to
Mhm.
make sure they were looped in the conversation.
Great.
They didn't reply. Well, actually, nobody replied with like calendar information. So,
I
mean,
said I can't do the 20th.
okay, yeah, that's true. You did say that. We did Tuesdays last year.
Yeah.
We did Mondays this year. Could we do Tuesdays again?
I am open to doing Tuesdays. Thank you. The commissioner said adapted to my schedule. I work evenings and unfortunately wasn't able to do Tuesdays.
And I'm
but
sure Sam
now-
would appreciate that.
Now I
that-
can
yeah.
I now can do Tuesdays.
Okay.
I no longer work Tuesdays evenings. So that is more suitable. I am unfortunately still traveling on the 21st, but that's okay. Yeah,
Yeah, and like, once again, this is not committing us to all Tuesdays.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
day Tuesday.
absolutely. It's just to get things started.
Was it 3rd Tuesday or 4th Tuesday? What was it last year?
I think it was 3rd Tuesday, right?
Yeah,
We just moved it to Mondays. Excellent. I'm sure this is riveting conversation for everyone. So.
It works. I'm flexible too.
Great, excellent. So we will amend, I move to amend the resolution to reflect Tuesday, January 21st. Is there a second?
A second.
Great, excellent. Any objections? Not noted. So now we have to vote.
So on your absence, does that mean you have to be remote or you can't participate?
It will be very late, but I will join if needed for quorum purposes.
Okay. We do a lot of stuff at the first meeting of the term.
Yeah, I
So-
will.
Should we pick another date for the first meeting?
I mean, if you all are amenable to that, that would be great. I will be in Europe.
All right.
Yeah, we can change it.
A week before.
Oh, yeah, we're just gonna.
I am gone. I am gone starting January 12th through the 22nd. But
Wow, must be nice.
I will be at a seminar. It will be
Yeah.
very long days. So I could do if I could do the 7th, I could do the 28th.
I could do the 7th.
7th and 28th are both open for me.
Sorry. Commissioner Galvin, 7th or 28th? You're muted, by the way.
Sorry, 7th works fine. 28th works fine as well.
And if Ms. Jones or Ms. Rezendian are on, I hope we can get their input as well. I don't know if they're on.
I do not
I don't see them.
Yeah, we can do the 28th.
All right, excellent. Everyone okay with the 28th?
Yeah, and that would then give us, if we did
Kind
want to
of.
notice, the proper calendar would still give us enough lead time for that. So
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Great, excellent. I know that would also potentially give us time if we wanted to do a special meeting or whatever, or like a working meeting or whatever they're called. All right, great. So
I will move to amend to read January 28th instead of January 21st.
I second. Any objections? Great. Now we will vote on the actual resolution. I will just do a quick roll call vote on this. Commissioner Hurst.
Aye.
Commissioner Sani.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams is still not present. Commissioner Galvin.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson is myself, and I vote aye. Commissioner Bishop Henchman.
Aye.
Commissioner Pinckney is not present. So with a vote of 5-0 this motion passes. Our next January meeting will be January 28th. Great. So the next item on our action agenda is ANC 5F response to NOI 24301. Commissioner Sani, do you want to go first?
Yep. So to kind of provide some context, because this resolution had come from our TAPS committee, or this letter, I should say. Several months ago, I mean, we all recognize the intersection North Capitol and Rhode Island Avenue is dangerous. There have been numerous reported accidents there. It's a very unsafe intersection for pedestrians, given how narrow the sidewalks are and how confusing the interchange is. DDOT proposed to ban left turns from Rhode Island Avenue heading northbound onto North Capitol, to instead route them down the unit block of T Street Northwest, across the 2 service lanes, and make a left and continue north on North Capitol. ANC 5F wrote a letter conditionally supporting it. We offered some additional requests for information that they were not forthcoming with, but also additional pedestrian and cyclist safety measures, because you're putting more traffic down on a road that was normally kind of a neighborhood road. ANC 5E, who's also an affected commission, they're on the west side of North Capitol. They voted to oppose it, and so given those 2 resolutions and Councilmember Parker's office's position on this, they took that back to the drawing board. They, within the last month, have come back with a new plan that would, instead of routing the traffic down the unit block of T Street Northwest, would instead route it 1 block down the service roads on North Capitol, a left on that 1/4 of a block, like over North Capitol, that's on the T Street Northeast Northwest touch point, and then basically a glorified like jug handle going back up north on North Capitol. And so ANC 5F's TAPS committee, we convened a couple weeks ago and discussed this, and we were all kind of shocked. I think that's a polite word at this solution DDOT brought forward. We were very concerned about the just the traffic backups that will exist now, or would exist with this proposed change at the intersections of those unit blocks, because cars will just sit on the intersection. There's going to be blocking of the crosswalks. It's going to be even more pedestrian unsafe somehow. And there's also no guarantee that this will result in actual improvement of the left turn situation on Rhode Island going on to northbound North Capitol, because there's no enforcement of that. It's just a sign saying no left turns, which we've seen time and time again is insufficient for curbing behavior. I think one person in the committee also mentioned that they'd seen similar behavior at Florida Avenue after they reconfigured the road. So all this to say, we collectively, as a committee, drafted our response, referred it up to full ANC 5F body for resolution, but we oppose the measure.
Great. Commissioner Bishop.
I'm told, I don't know whether it's true or not, but I've been told this intersection, North Cap and Rhode Island, is #1 in the city for traffic tickets due to the terrible design of the intersection. And it is difficult to go through that intersection in a legal way, especially if you're turning from one road to another. And this deals with turning from Rhode Island on to North Cap. So you're coming from downtown, going up Rhode Island, and you want to go up North Cap. How do you do it? And their proposal is that you don't turn left on North Cap. Instead, you turn right, go down a block or so to T Street, cross over the little overpass thing that they have there, which is not designed to be a main thoroughfare, and then take that hairpin turn and immediately go up the frontage road on the other side, and then go up to North Capitol. Within maybe not hours, but certainly days of getting this NOI from DDOT, I reached out and asked for what is your information on how many lives will be saved, how much safety will be improved by doing this, and what are the alternatives you considered but did not forward? Because to my untrained eye, no one is going to do this. No driver is going to do this. And you know, I am, among other things, I am a pedestrian. Many of us are. And I often see the wreckage of car accidents at this intersection, which is a sign that there are a lot of car accidents at this intersection. It is very hostile to pedestrians. I mean, this just isn't going to work. And I've gotten an acknowledgement of my question from DDOT, but not the actual information. And this is their clock we're running on. They want to hear, they gave us a deadline of December 31st to provide community input, but they're not giving us the information that, and this isn't just me asking for this. This is what a lot of people were asking me when they saw this is, well, what are the things, what didn't make the cut if this is what they came up with? And because to me, it's very obvious that, you know, maybe there should be a pedestrian island, maybe there should be infrastructure to prevent turns at speed. Maybe as our resolution says, we need to be building a bus lane and investing in mass transit instead of what we do now. Were any of those considered? I don't know. And so it's very hard for me to vote yes on not on this, I'm voting yes on this, but to vote yes on what they've asked for, because it's kind of a black hole. And you know, maybe they have information that says this will save 10 lives if we do it. And actually drivers will follow this because of the nifty signage we're going to put up or something. But like, they haven't even told us that. I don't understand how they're expecting anybody to support this NOI based on what they've provided. I did want to, I'm fine voting as is. I wanted to see if we could add language about a pedestrian island and infrastructure to prevent left turns at speed if people would be amenable. But I mainly pulled this to communicate my frustration with DDOT on this. And I think it's frustration that's probably shared by other commissioners, certainly by commissioners in neighboring commissions, and by a lot of people that traverse this intersection by car, bike, and foot. So I guess I will move to add in the second paragraph after Rhode Island Avenue and North Capitol intersection, comma, after the comma, a pedestrian island, comma, and built infrastructure to prevent left turns at speed, so that the sentence reads, Further, without significant and sustained enforcement at the Rhode Island and North Capitol Street intersection, a pedestrian island, and built infrastructure to prevent left turns at speed, this change may not achieve the desired safety improvements, but worsen them.
Great. Any second?
A second.
Second.
Any objections? Great, so adopted. Commissioner,
That's all I have.
great. Commissioner Galvin, your hand is up. You are recognized.
Yeah, no, I would agree with everything that Commissioner Bishop Henchman stated, and want to thank you, Commissioner Sani, for your work on the TAPS committee and for taking a look at this in detail. Yeah, even on a bike, same deal. It is horrendously unsafe, and this recommendation by DDOT is laughable. No one is going to do this. And I think a real significant amount of enforcement. It's funny to hear you say that, Commissioner Bishop Henchman, that this is the most ticketed section of Rhode Island and North Capitol. I have never seen someone posted there to actually give out tickets, or anyone pulled over maybe once. So it's there really needs to be some heavy enforcement to get folks in line, because they speed through there on a daily. So happy to support this, and just want to thank all of the work that's been gone into this. So thanks.
Great. So I'll just echo that too. It would be so lovely to have that be a safer intersection. I know that there have been a lot of conversations about longer term, what happens on North Capitol, but it would also be great to have short-term improvements, because it is unsafe right now. And I think that it would be great to have at least like temporary safety, or I mean, by temporary, things that could be actioned in the month, so that like this longer term plan of North Capitol improving, we don't have to wait for those until for the safety improvements to take place. All right, with all that said, anyone else wanting to speak on this matter? Don't see any hands. So let's go ahead and go to a roll call vote on this. Commissioner Hurst.
Aye.
Commissioner Sani.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams is not present. Commissioner Galvin.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson is myself, and I vote aye. Commissioner Bishop Henchman.
Aye.
And Commissioner Pinckney is not present. So with a vote of 5 to 0, this motion, this resolution passes. And that is all I have in the action agenda. So let's move ahead to item 10. Other reports or presentations. We have presentation from 901 Monroe Street Northeast project.
Yes, I believe, let me just double check.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Mr. Conway is online. I saw him, so I'm gonna recognize him.
Great, excellent. We will recognize you, Mr. Conway. You will still have to unmute yourself. Just allow us a couple minutes, a couple seconds to do that. And you will have 10 minutes for your presentation, and you'll have separate time allotted for Q&A. All right, great. We see your camera and we see that you're unmuted.
Great. Thank you all so much. I would actually like to turn it over to Paul Tummins, who's on this call. If you were able to unmute him, and then Maurice Walters as well.
Great, we'll go ahead and recognize them. Just allow us a couple minutes or seconds.
You said Maurice Walters?
Yes.
Right, you all should have access.
Great. Well, thank you, Peter. Good evening. My name is Paul Tummins. I am a zoning land use attorney at Goldston & Storrs, and I represent the 901 Monroe Street LLC team. We are here to give a kind of an opening presentation to ANC 5F about the property that is located along Monroe, just across the train tracks from your ANC. This project's actually located in ANC 5B. I see that Commissioner Ra Amin is here with us this evening. But we just wanted to give you a update of where we are with that process, where we are about the future development of that site, and a little bit of a timeline. So with that, first, I will pass it off to Maurice Walters Architects, and the project architect. Maurice?
Thank you, Paul. Can you guys all see my screen? I just started sharing the presentation. Oh, I hit that button.
How
How about it?
It is starting to load, I think.
Yay.
Now.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Maurice Walters, the project architect. I'm also joined by Ting Golick from our office. We're happy to be here presenting the project. So the site, you see the site here bounded in yellow. It is along Monroe Street. It is just to the east of the tracks. This is where Monroe comes up, rises up, goes over the tracks, and then comes back down at 9th. That's also the intersection to enter the metro station, which is immediately to the north of the site. 9th Street on the west, Lawrence Street on the south, and 10th Street on the east. So Monroe Street, is predominantly kind of a commercial thoroughfare. 9th Street has some townhouses, some kind of institutional uses down here, more row houses, schools, churches off to the east, as well as some townhouses at this corner of the site. So what we have tonight, we'll just walk you through a series of views of the project. This is a view up here from the north west corner. So this is Monroe Street. This is 9th Street. The building is entered at the corner. It is a 6-story building. It has the base, has amenity space. It's kind of a little more open, porous, and then residential units above. It is a brick building. It is articulated in a series of 4 bays along the streetscape. And then going down 9th, there's a series of 2 large courtyards up above that open up. Kind of zooming in at that corner of 9th and Monroe. Here you can see our lobby. We've worked really hard to kind of set the existing right-of-way is very narrow. If you've walked along there, you'll notice there's not much of a sidewalk. So we've worked really hard to push the building back to get more proper sidewalk and green space and trees. So again, that's the corner lobby. Then moving down to the other side of the block, we currently have this arranged with a series of stoops leading into units that will have direct access to the street, and then you have the building above. The next image going down to the corner of 10th, looking at the building from the other end. Moving around the corner, going down 10th Street. The building actually steps down in height. We terrace back at the 5th floor, and then the 6th floor is kind of set back to soften the massing as we go around the building. As we come to the end of the 10th Street frontage, there's a little side yard at the back of the building, and then the row houses back here. Moving down the corner, looking at the existing townhomes, and then the building here with the 5-story height, and then the step back 6th floor. Going around the corner, the existing townhomes, there's an existing alley coming off of Lawrence that will be maintained and widened, and that will be the primary access into the middle of the block. And then as we get down to Lawrence, we've arranged the building with a series of 4-story kind of townhome type bays to again kind of break down the massing and the scale of it. Kind of moving along Lawrence, looking down that alley, there'll be access to parking and service down at the end of the alley. Down at the corner of Lawrence and 9th, again, those row home bay type bays we mentioned that kind of break down the scale, and then the building folds around, and on all the sides, we've really set the building back to give more ample green space and nice wide sidewalks. Moving back up 9th, again, that's looking up into one of the courtyards, elevated up on the building. And that kind of completes a little walk around the building, and we're welcome answering any questions you might have.
Perfect. Maybe I'll just kind of give a couple things. So we didn't mention about 230 residential units we're proposing here. 15% of those units will be affordable, and we're proposing 54 parking spaces. We expect that the zoning commission will hold its public hearing on this application in probably April or May. To date, we made a presentation to Commissioner Amin, ANC 5B04 at his SMD meeting in September. We made our initial presentation to ANC 5B in October. We were at the Brooklyn Neighborhood Civic Association in November. and we're here tonight to talk to you. But again, to convey to you that we're still pretty early in the process. There will be more discussion as we move towards the ANC meeting. I'm sorry, the zoning commission public hearing. We have a couple of representatives also here this evening. Peter Conway, you mentioned, is from Horning, part of the development team, as is Natasha Thompson from the Mankiti Group, also part of the development team. So hopefully, I think we got it done right around 10 minutes, and we're able to answer any questions that you may have.
Great, excellent. That was just a couple minutes under. So let's go ahead and go to questions. We'll go to commissioners first and then members of the public and commissioners wishing to make any questions. Commissioner Hurst?
Any retail at all, or is it all units?
Peter?
It will be it's all multifamily residential on site. We did look at retail really heavily. Our goal was really to support existing retail, both along 12th Street and in Monroe Street Market, with additional residents, additional retail demand. We also talked to several retail experts about that specific site, who did informed us that leasing that would be challenging. So we ultimately determined to activate Monroe Street. As Maurice pointed out, we have those 5 bays or loft units directly onto Monroe. And then we also put the lobby with all of the residential amenities on Monroe to really enliven the streetscape.
Question from me, and I'll go to you, Commissioner Sani. You mentioned that 15% of the units will be affordable. Could you talk a little bit more about any plans that you have, like the breakdown of like with the size of the units and kind of the income proportion for that?
Sure. So right now we have of the unit mix, 12 of the units, about 5% of the units will be 3 bedrooms. There will be 38 2 bedrooms. 39 units will have 1 bedroom and dens. 91 1 bedrooms. 45 we call it junior 1 bedrooms, and then 7 studios.
Is that for all of the units?
Yeah, so that of the 232, that was the breakdown. Yeah.
Okay, got it. And 15% of those units will be affordable. And could you talk a little bit about how is that kind of evenly spread out amongst like the 3 bedroom, the 2 bedroom, kind of the unit breakdown, or what is the plan for that?
Yeah, so we're going to follow the IZ regulations. So they'll be they have to be commensurate with the mix of units in the building. So the same percentage of market rate units in the building will also be the same percentage for the IZ units.
Okay, great. Commissioner Sani?
Yeah, so when you had mentioned, kind of dovetailing on the amenities question that Commissioner Hurst asked, when you mentioned that there would be amenities on the ground floor, are those amenities for the residents of the building, like a weight room and a meeting room sort of thing, or are there other activations planned for those?
These will be just residential amenities, including a fitness center right on that on Monroe Street, which Maurice pointed out. And then further, we'll have a roof deck and then 2 courtyards, which will have other residential amenities.
And kind of follow-up question, kind of jumping the tracks a bit. So looks like you said the main entrance for, like, I guess the parking garages would be off that alley along Lawrence Street. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I guess, so with the 54 parking spaces you're allotting, what size are those spaces? Are be like mostly compact or a mix of full and smaller size?
We're currently studying what that exactly means. We've talked with members of our own ANC who have discussed compact cars and what that means. That's something we're studying right now, and we'll decide that exact amount at a later point. Cool.
And then with the loading, are there any other kind of designated loading zones or parking zones? I know, like, obviously with these, like with density will come lots of delivery services and such. I know a lot of folks in ANC 5F who ride that Monroe Street bike lane to get to drop their kids off at school in the morning. Like what protections are we gonna do on right now, the existing protected infrastructure to ensure lack of parking in those, along those throughways?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a good question. So right now, just as you mentioned, the only curb cut that will be utilized for this building will be the expanded alley off of Lawrence Street. So we're not looking to change any of the infrastructure that's, I guess somewhat recently created along Monroe Street. We are potentially looking at having some maybe pickup pickup drop-off zone near the entrance to the building. So that might be right there where Maurice is showing that along 9th Street. And we just do that with signage, not with any infrastructure changes.
And currently those bike lanes are kind of protected. The cars actually park outside of them. So I don't know if that got to your question about obstructing the bike lanes, but I think if the cars park where they're supposed to, they shouldn't be obstructing the bikes.
Yeah, and there's protection on the other side of it, so they don't pull too far in, but wanted to make sure there were no adjustments to the existing protection planned.
Correct.
Great. Commissioner Galvin?
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm actually very pleased to see this this big lot finally getting utilized and for some high density. So that's great. Thanks so much. One question about the kind of I guess mechanical systems. I know when you have huge developments like this, that if there are a bunch of things on the roof, it can be in the middle of the summer a pretty loud humming for adjacent neighbors. And I know this is right next to the metro, so it's pretty loud as it is. But can you kind of describe a little bit what how the mechanical systems, and maybe you're not that far along, but what that would look like?
Yeah, right now it's envisioned as a split system heat pumps where the condensing units would be on the roof. It's actually kind of interesting if you look at the buildings that we worked on particularly, that you can see them up there on the roof. I don't think you ever notice the sound from those at the Everton or over here at the Arts Walk. You can see them clustered up there. So it'll be very similar to that. They will be clustered up on the roof, 6 stories in the air. So I think you can have a hard time hearing them from the ground plane.
Got it. And will there be any architectural elements that will hide them?
Yeah, we do have at least about a 42-inch parapet all the way around the roof.
Okay.
So visually and sightline, yeah, those should if there may be a couple of higher fresh air elements, and we will have higher screen walls to screen those, but everything should be screened from visibility.
Got it. And planning for like a high albedo roof.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm sure that's probably standard
cool.
as part of.
Cool. Well, actually, a lot of it will likely be green roof because of
nice.
the DOE standard. So pretty significant amount of green roof.
Great. Thanks so much.
Commissioner Sani?
And I guess one last follow-up question, because I just thought of it. So obviously WMATA is planning development on the opposite side of Monroe Street at the Brookland Metro Station. Have you had any contact with them about what their plans are for that and how this design could be harmonious with them? Just to kind of, I appreciate the notion of building out this unified streetscape connecting Brookland 12th Street to Edgewood's Monroe Street Market, and so having this and the WMATA development kind of be these important connectors for the neighborhoods is great, but want to make sure that one is not going to put the other one at odds and have more collaboration and planning in our development here.
So I can jump on that, Peter. I think, we have had some very early discussion with DDOT, but I think most importantly, as far as DDOT's concerned, we are putting density, as Commissioner Galvin said, on a site right across the street from Metro, which they like. And we are limiting the amount of parking that we are providing. So having 54 spaces for the 230 units DDOT is also like appreciative of that. I think so, one of the question too, with regards to the retail uses, and somewhat we think that, perhaps the metro site is probably maybe a better opportunity for more retail there, to really catch all the people coming in and out of the train station more so than us. So I think we're not competing with the potential for retail on the metro site. And as Peter said, really hoping to focus more retail along 12th Street, kind of the historic Brooklyn neighborhood core, and then along the Monroe Street Market. I think we're all excited about the Trader Joe's coming in, and sure that the other retail fills out.
Cool. Thank you.
Commissioner Bishop Henchman.
Thank you, and thank you for presenting tonight. And I think you mentioned Commissioner Amin from 5B is on. I got a chance to talk a little bit with him on this project, so I'm glad he's here. And I think he's asked the applicant a lot of questions already, but certainly if he has any more questions, I wouldn't be opposed to recognizing him if he has any at any point. I do have a couple of questions. We're not acting on this tonight. This is going to go before zoning in April or May, so we've got quite a bit of time to hear from the community on this in the coming weeks and months. But I was wondering if you could talk about any outreach that you have planned. You mentioned some of the outreach you've done already, but is there anything that you're already planning to do on additional community outreach between now and when it goes before zoning?
Peter?
We certainly plan to have many more community meetings in a time, with Paul mentioning our public hearing being in April or May. Working with Commissioner Amin about that, talking to other groups as well. And one thing of note, we did have a farmers market stand at the Monroe Street Market farmers market. We plan to do that again. We thought that was really great, meeting people just across the train tracks from the site. But as of right now, we don't have anything solidified yet, but we do have a project-specific email, which I'm happy to provide to all of the attendees here. It's 901monroe@horningdc.com. And we also have a website that is 901monroe.com. We'll post all confirmed meetings there. We'll also circulate any other future meetings for all attendees, and we'll certainly keep everyone informed as we have other events coming up.
Peter,
I might add too, on that 901 Monroe website, there is a list of the meetings we've had, in addition to, I would say the more formal presentations we've made to the BNCA and ANC 5B, but it really lists a lot of the meetings we've had with the residents within 200 feet, other residents in the area. It also has what we hope is a insightful, educational FAQ document, and it also has some questions that were posed to us, as you mentioned, Commissioner, from Commissioner Amin and from the BNCA meeting.
Peter, would you mind putting both the email and the website in the chat, and it'll go directly to us, and we'll just make sure everyone can see it.
They should actually listen to them because they're close.
Oh, right. If you you should have co-host privileges. So if you just wouldn't mind putting it in the chat so that everyone can see both the email and the website, that would be great. All right. I know you have more questions. I'm just gonna say, if anyone in person or online would like to speak, if you wouldn't mind just showing your hand, so we get a sense of anyone who might have questions, and we'll come to you after. I just wanted everyone to get your question caps on, but Commissioner Bishop Henchman, what do you think?
I said it's softball. What's there now?
Say, for those who have been in the community for a while, this was the site where Colonel Brooks Tavern used to be. For those who are probably or newcomer to the neighborhood, it's just a vacant lot. It's the vacant lot right across the street from the metro entrance. But then there are 6 row houses in what I guess the southeast corner of the block, more focused towards Lawrence and 10th Street.
I'm sorry, just one more on the outreach. Property owners within 200 feet are being notified or have been notified, I'm assuming.
Yep, and we've had meetings with them. And then that's part of on that 901 Monroe Street, you'll be able to see the, Monroe.com. You'll be able to see the meetings we've had, including the meeting specifically with the quote unquote 200 footers.
Thank you. That's all I have at this time.
Great, excellent. Commissioner Galvin, I see there's a hand in public, not on the internet. So I'm going to recognize that and I'll come back to you if that's okay. If you wouldn't mind, just saying your name, if you feel comfortable and kind of where you are.
My name is Jamila Minix, and I am one of the 200 footers for this project. And so when I found out that y'all were hosting us this evening, I thought I'd come in and share some of the thoughts of the 200 footers that we have shared with other bodies as well. Commissioner Amin, I'm sure knows many of the concerns that we have. My house was not shown on any of these renderings. My house is at the corner of 10th and Lawrence, which faces the garage and the alley. We actually did prepare for the NCA some remarks that I may share with you. We have had several meetings with, I will call them meetings. They have been set up, this conversation has been set on the agenda, and I have some extras for y'all too. The conversation has been set on the agenda a number of times, but what happens is when it gets set on the agenda, there's not ample time to discuss the concerns. And so 2 of the meetings, we've actually had to ask the development group not to count those meetings because we have not had sufficient time to look at renderings, to have questions answered, or even to ask questions.
Ask away.
So we have, as a group, as the 200 footers, put together a list of concerns and objections to this plan. For those of you who are not familiar with the history of this development, in 2011, there was a lawsuit against this very development because it kept going up and down to the zoning commission. And it was not, just so that and the initial group of 200 footers were actually successful in getting this lawsuit, or getting the initial plan for this building stopped. And then what was there, when we talk about what was on that lot before, that lot had Colonel Brooks Tavern. It also had a restaurant called Island Jim. There were a number of single family homes. There was nothing remotely to this scale. The 200 footers in the initial lawsuit from about 13, 14 years ago, as well as the 200 footers now, have always been in favor of responsible development. We've always been in favor of building to a proportionate scale, and we have always supported housing because we understand that there is a housing crisis in this city. And so we've absolutely always, even in the prior iteration of this lawsuit, or in the prior iteration of this project, had asked for more affordable housing, paths to ownership, as well as elder housing. I'm not sure if that's part of this plan that we are currently talking about, if that's part of the 15%, but to date, that has not been mentioned to any of us as a possibility. Also, with regard to not just the scale of the building, but what the building will do to the neighborhood as far as not providing any amenities. So this is a major concern for us. There's no retail in this building. So this building, what we have been essentially offered is wider sidewalks and some street trees. In response to that, we have asked for a number of things that have been said, well, we'll think about it. We're gonna kick the can down the road. One of the major amendments to this project that occurred after we started raising objections was the fact that the alley that is the only ingress and egress point for this project exits on Lawrence Street, which is a small street. There's no discussion of widening the street, and it's not just an alley for a parking garage. It's where the garbage trucks are going to go in and out of this building. It's where the deliveries will go in and out of this building. There are 6 row houses that are dwarfed by this building, and then across Lawrence Street, there are a number of single family homes. So that's another major health, that's a health concern. That's also a safety concern for all the people who are walking on those sidewalks, for the children who play in this neighborhood, to have a major thoroughfare going into this building. The 54 parking spaces in the initial iteration of this building, the parking was undergrounded. Now the parking is all above ground. So now we have 54, and there are less spaces now than there were before. So what happens on Lawrence Street and 9th Street and 10th Street is that the parking that we have now is going to be used up. There has been testimony in other meetings that were about buildings that went up across the train tracks, and how everybody was talking about this fairy tale that people are not going to have cars. And so they're not going to take up the parking spaces, that the traffic pattern isn't just going to be destroyed. We are in favor of responsible development. We have always been in favor of responsible development, but as you can see in the statement that we did for the BNCA, but for the resistance to like overreach in this neighborhood, there would be no Brookland. And I think it's really important to understand that when we talk about developments like the Renata, I looked at that and that was a breath of fresh air to me, to see that there are people in this city who want to do something about the housing crisis. People who are really invested in the neighborhood, who are really looking at the scale and what's around. And then this just feels like, I mean, and I'm not alone, I've spoken to my other neighbors, this development as it is feels like a big thumb in the eye for resistance. And all we've ever asked for is for something to be reasonable to scale to the neighborhood. It was not always a vacant lot. There were beautiful Victorians on that lot. You know, there were homes on that lot. The neighbors who lived, many of the neighbors, my former neighbors, when I moved there in 2011, were elderly and people who held that neighborhood down during the crack epidemic. And so I think it's, for us, this neighborhood means so much for this generation of people who have come as first-time homeowners to make this our home long-term. We are people who are deeply committed to doing something about the housing crisis. But we also really need the city to understand that there is a history here, and there is a way for neighbors to work together and to build something that's appropriate for everybody and that can make everybody happy. And this just is not it. So with that, I will allow you to look at the statement. I'm sure I have other neighbors on the call. I know Rob probably has something to say. And I thank you for allowing me some time to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
May I ask you a follow-up question?
Sure.
Well, thank you for being here and for speaking. I've taken notes on the questions that you've raised, and I hope we'll get answers from them, if not tonight, as the process plays out. One thing you mentioned was lack of retail or amenities for the community beyond wider sidewalks and street trees. And I think you referenced that there were things you had in mind or that the community had in mind. Would you mind, if that's the case, would you mind sharing what some of those ideas might be?
I mean, so for instance, in this iteration, there's like a pool and something, but it's a courtyard that's elevated for the building. And so we were hoping that, in the prior iteration, I believe there was like a park that they were thinking about doing something for kids, because there are kids in this neighborhood. And so we also asked about, with 232 new units, there are presumably going to be people who bring dogs. So we had this conversation about, are you going to provide an outdoor space for dogs, because big developments coming into a neighborhood, I know nobody wants to talk about it, but poop is a problem. And particularly with the garbage that's going to be generated from this, rats love dog poop. And so we're like, how can we sort of minimize sort of things like that? There's no discussion of doing any sort of indoor dog park. There's no discussion for any sort of community green space. There's, the things that we were looking at to say, okay, work with us, like give us something to work with. You want to build, many of us are concerned about the size and scale of the building. I mean, this is way outsized to anything that's currently there. Even if you look at
There's nothing current.
No, I mean, but I was saying, like, if you look across 9th Street, If you look at the homes that are there, but there's also a city building across 9th Street that this building is way out of scale with that.
The TV studio, that one?
No, across
Different.
9th Street. It's a city building, and I believe that building is 3 stories tall. So this is almost twice that height. So it's not just that there's nothing on the lot, it's that the scale of everything around the neighborhood is so much smaller. And even if you look at the renderings and look at the road, because my house is not even on here, which it should be because we're within 200 feet, but the scale of the comparison between this building and the row houses even, if you look at that, look at the sunlight that they're gonna lose, look at all of their dwarfed. And so I think it's important to, when we're talking about responsible development, there are neighbors there, and this building does not exist in a vacuum. This neighborhood has been, like I said, held down by people who were there for generations. Many of my former neighbors are gone, but there are young families who have moved in here who loved this neighborhood for the potential. These are people, we are all people who understand that there is a housing crisis. We've been accused of being NIMBYs. The housing crisis with the buildings that are built that are not even to capacity. That's not something we handle. That's not something that we have control over. What we want to see in this building is a path to ownership for people. What we would love to see in this building is more affordable housing and senior housing, if possible. And so, you know, I think there are conversations that need to be had, not as a part of, you know, and I appreciate you for allowing me this time, but not as a part of like one piece of a meeting. And so this sort of, this sort of like the objections that we have raised before, you know, every time it feels like, and I'm hoping I'm not doing anything now even, but it feels like every time we say something, the change becomes, okay, we're gonna make the alley the only ingress and egress point. And if any of y'all are familiar with 9th Street, we're talking about Rhode Island, or excuse me, Lawrence Street. We were talking about Rhode Island and North Capitol earlier, and the concerns for pedestrians there. This is a narrow street where children play. And if we're concerned about North Capitol and Rhode Island, we should absolutely be concerned about the exponential increase in traffic and large traffic vehicles that are going to be going in and out of this, right behind these row houses and up the street where children play and where people are riding bikes and stuff. I don't see how those two things are distinguishable.
So
Thank you.
Thank you. I can definitely, you know, I think this is really important context. I think based on what you said too, there were a couple questions I think that were embedded within, specifically about public amenities, also the Lawrence Street, kind of the alley entry egress. And then I know in the original presentation, there was a mention about a retail study being done. But if we could have a little bit more context, I think those are the big 3 questions. I mean, the overall context was helpful, but I think those were the 3 specific questions that I heard, right?
There are more. I mean, those
Right.
are the ones that we like
What
top
I read.
line. But
Yeah.
I can't say that everybody who is within 200 feet is preparing like an individual objection. So this
Yeah.
is something.
Right.
What I
Right.
wrote was scale,
Yeah, right.
affordable housing, including elder care housing,
Mhm.
percentage, lack of retail amenities beyond the wider sidewalk.
Sorry, just to clarify, rather than summarizing the points, because I think you made a lot of really great points, I just wanted to give the presenters a chance to respond maybe to, because every time you ask a question, I kind of wrote
Are
those.
there any other community?
Yes, there are a couple
I
hands.
want to kind of ask everything and then let them respond to everything if we can.
Yes,
Maybe.
Chair Bishop mentioned.
No.
Great. Well, I will follow your suggestions. Very helpful, Commissioner
You're
Bishop
excellent.
Henchman. I look forward to your chairship next year.
No.
Sorry, I'm being spicy. All right, Commissioner Galvin, you have waited a long time, so I'll go to you, and then I also see another hand from Caroline O'Shea. So I'll let you all go, and then allow the presenters to respond.
No, honestly, my question was, what are some of the other residents, what they think? And so I think that answered some of it. So I'm gonna let this roll.
Great, excellent. Caroline O'Shea, we will ask to unmute you. You're recognized.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for this presentation. I've been wondering about what's been going on with this. So I appreciated hearing it as a neighbor. And personally, I can't think of a better place to put more dense residential than on a vacant lot directly across from a metro station, next to bike infrastructure, near retail, both on 12th Street and at the Monroe area. And it's important for our transportation and climate goals, and of course, for much needed housing. I mean, you mentioned the income restricted affordable units, but I would also note that most of these units as rentals are going to be cheaper than buying or even renting one of the single family homes in the area. So I just want to ask, my question then is, as someone who's excited about this, what are ways that we can help support this project in the coming, in terms of, I know you mentioned the timeline for zoning and stuff like that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I don't see any other hands, any other questions before we go into that. I guess I had an overall question about this, maybe for another forum, but on the parking issue. I know that for other projects, sometimes you can get like a restriction on residents of the building, the ability to apply for an RPP, which I think may help with some of the parking issues so residents aren't able to get like street parking access, which I think has come up in previous projects with limited garage parking space. And I know presenters had talked a little bit about the metro retail, but I'll allow you all to kind of speak to some of the points that have been raised thus far.
Sure. So first, with regards to the access to the site. So initially, we had looked at the idea of having a 10th Street access to the site, vehicular access as well, based on kind of further discussions with DDOT. I think that they stuck firm on their policy, which is they do not want to approve curb cuts for properties that have access from an existing alley system. This is an existing alley system. An alley system that is used for vehicular ingress and egress and trash trucks. So we're going to do that, but we're going to do that by enhancing the alley by doubling its width, as Maurice said. So the removal of the curb cut that was previously on 10th Street. We also had some of the neighbors on 10th Street. I think they were not displeased by the idea of no longer having that curb cut there. We've had lots of discussions with Jamila and some of her and her neighbors, and we look to continue to have those discussions. Since the appeal of this case, we went to the DC Court of Appeals after the zoning commission approved the previous case. The future land use map designation had been changed so that the future land use map calls for medium density residential development on this site. So I think, as Ms. O'Shea mentioned, the city believes that this is an appropriate site for denser development with the setbacks, the ins and outs, the architectural details that Maurice and Ting and their team have proposed this evening. We believe that we are creating a building that is in keeping with the community, is appropriate in its massing and height and density for the site. And we will continue to work with Commissioner Amin's help on finalizing a benefits and amenities package for this property. And then finally, the last thing is a part of the amenities package, but also one of the things that we are looking at is of RPP and whether it makes sense to restrict that as well.
Parking restriction.
Yeah.
And I'll just add, there may have been other questions that were asked. Please reference the FAQs we posted. We have answered many, there are dozens of questions there, and we provided answers. So if there's anything else you all are curious about, please reference that on the website.
Okay, any other questions?
I guess just for
Yeah.
general kind of, everyone knows what the next steps could be. Like, what are the general pieces of relief or exemptions that you're asking at least the people within 200 feet and affected commissions?
Sure. So first I would say on that website that I saw was put into the chat is our full package that includes our rationale for this planned unit development and zoning map amendment that we're proposing. It also includes a timeline for this zoning commission process. So we are not seeking any sort of relief from the zoning regulations, but we are rezoning this site to allow for this, the height and massing of this building, this 4.2 FAR building. And at its highest point, this building is 75 feet tall. So with that PUD process, we would be required to build this building. The building that is approved by the zoning commission. If we wanted to, at some point in the future, if there was any desire to modify that building, it would have to go back through this PUD process again, through the PUD modification process, and there would have to be another public hearing. I know that is, you'll see in the FAQs, there were some questions or concerns about that. How does the community know that this would be the building that would be approved? So I think we've addressed that, and we can continue to address if there's more concerns.
Thank you.
Okay, great. I know you are mentioning the website, and that you had mentioned that the zoning case will be in April, May. Any other points that you would like to, what would be the next opportunity? Just since we are in a meeting, if you wouldn't mind also kind of, I know a lot of people, neighbors, I know that zoning is a complicated process, and sometimes it is complicated if you haven't been through the process before to know how to get engaged. Would you mind kind of just saying a little bit more in plain speak, what's the next opportunity to engage? I know you had mentioned the email, but just to be as inclusive as possible for neighbors who are wanting to engage in this, who may be engaging in something like this for the first time.
Yeah. So Peter, do you want to start?
Yeah, we certainly will have, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we have, many other community events coming up. I'll have to, reconnect with Commissioner Amin about solidifying a few of these. I do believe maybe perhaps in the later part of January, maybe early February, we might do another farmers market stand as we discussed. We'll let everyone know. We'll have another ANC 5B meeting, I believe, sometime in the winter, as well as other smaller individual meetings. But yes, we're happy to provide as much detail as we can about next steps and keep everyone involved as much as we can in this process.
And I would say that I want to give Peter and Natasha and their team a lot of credit. I find that they're very good at responding to emails. So in that there was that email address. So if you had specific questions, please feel free send those to that email address. And on behalf of Peter and Natasha, I can say they will be responded to.
Great, excellent. Any other questions from anyone present?
Since he's there,
Yeah.
Since Commissioner Means on,
Yeah, sure.
As one may notice walking around Eckington, we've done quite a few PUD negotiations over the years on community benefits. Certainly excited to see what comes out of this, especially given some of the suggestions that we've heard today about what the community may be interested in seeing. And certainly if Commissioner Amin needs any help at all, I'm sure many of us are happy to help on that.
Community amenities. Parks are nice.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone for your engagement. It seems like there is a long road ahead, and we'll look forward to the website being updated with more opportunities to engage. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
All right, let's moving on to the next item on the agenda, which are committee and task force updates. First is the Alcohol and Cannabis Licensing Committee. I saw Ms. Coughlin online. We will ask to unmute you now.
Hi, thank you. My name is Melissa Coughlin. I'm the Alcohol Cannabis Licensing Committee Chair, and we actually don't have any new updates since our meeting that we had like last week or earlier. But we are looking for more people to join our committee. So if you're interested, let me know, and I'll yield the rest of my time.
Thanks so much. Thank you. All right, Mr. Aaron Price for Public Safety and Health.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Anderson, and good evening, neighbors and commissioners. Just want to take a moment to thank all the outgoing ANC 5F commissioners. Commissioner Hurst, thank you for all of your work and your service to the community. We appreciate all your work, and it's clearly not nearly appreciated enough, so thank you very much. In terms of updates from the Public Safety and Health Committee, our committee did not meet in November due to inability to meet quorum. So we will be holding our next committee meeting this Thursday, December 19th from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. in the Judd and Wheeler and Eckington Community Room. We also always have a hybrid option that's available to join virtually for neighbors that do not want to travel to the Eckington Community Room. At our meeting on Thursday, we will be discussing our community engagement strategy, a resolution on moped and traffic violence, and then also a gun violence reduction strategy resolution letter. On that resolution letter note, just a heads up for all commissioners that this resolution letter for the urgent need for a coordinated, comprehensive strategy to address gun violence in Washington, D.C. is coming to your inboxes either later this week or early next week for voting consideration at the January meeting. So just be on the lookout for that. I'll be asking for feedback very soon. And then I'm just going to end my update with a public safety and health tip. Weather is getting colder, everyone. So just a reminder to look out for your neighbors, especially our homeless neighbors, that we have DC warming centers and facilities that are set up, especially when the temperature drops. So just be on the lookout for neighbors that may be experiencing the cold more so than others. If you go to snow.dc.gov, you will find a list of those warming centers and their proximity to various areas within our neighborhood. So just keep an eye out. Happy holidays, everyone. Stay warm, stay happy, stay safe, and we will see you all in the new year.
Great. Thank you so much. TAPS.
Yeah, so as mentioned a little earlier, TAPS did meet this past month, and we had some good resolution drafting discussion. We not only drafted the letter that ANC 5F amended and passed, so thank you for that, regarding the traffic at Rhode Island and North Capitol, but also we, driven by a committee member, which is always great to see, we referred up a resolution for some sidewalk pedestrian improvements in Edgewood, which was passed on the consent agenda, so thank you for that. Up next, we're eyeing some long-standing pedestrian issues around 8th Street and Monroe Street, to, especially as we're getting more amenities coming in and more buildings kind of being built, we see a good opportunity to ask DDOT to kind of move forward and improve the pedestrian experience along these important corridors. And so those will be coming up for discussion in a subsequent meeting. But yeah, that is it for TAPS.
Excellent. Zoning and Development Commissioner?
I wasn't there.
Okay.
Mr. Stone is there. I mean, they did make a recommendation on that we passed already.
Well, I think they kind of made recommendation.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any other committee update beyond what's been discussed in this meeting, so that's great. Anything on library task force?
They are not meeting this month. We're expecting an update from DCPL next month following the end of their contract with the research company. So I think we're getting close to site selection. In a DCPL meeting to the city government, like what their plans are for their vision plan. They did say that once that happens and the site, they get negotiation, construction and planning, everything else will take us well to 2030. So, and
we'll see if we can beat that record.
Yeah, so like hopefully one can beat that, but hopefully people are also not necessarily holding their breaths for this, because this is just the first step in a very long process.
I feel like whole countries have changed their governance systems faster than they're planning on building this library. So.
All right, well, thank you. Our committees are very, very active, and as we talked about earlier, we are always looking for more people to be engaged on them, but if you really feel passionate about a particular issue that affects the community, that's a really great place to get into these issues and also get a preview on the presentations that come to us. So if you are looking for more ANC 5F related content, committees are where they're at. Excellent. Any appointments? No one has submitted any?
Commissioner Hurst, are you
Would you like to be on a
interested in
committee?
staying involved after your departure?
I would consider so.
Oh, well, all right. Well,
We'll see. Yeah, that's right.
Commissioner Hurst, thank you so much for your service. It's been a pleasure
Thank you, Commissioner.
being our treasurer.
And she's not here, but Commissioner Pinckney
And
is
Commissioner
also
Williams.
wrapping up her service, many terms of service. When I first moved to Eckington, she was my commissioner, and a very visible one.
Yeah.
And a very one who's achieved a lot of stuff, and so certainly want to thank her for her service as well.
Yeah, in her years of service. She's my commissioner as well. So thank you, Commissioner Pinckney, as well. With that said, I don't have any additional items on the agenda. I would like to motion to adjourn. Is there any second? Are there any objections? With none noted, this meeting is now adjourned at 9 p.m. Thank you so much.
Our next regular meeting will be Tuesday, January 28th at 7 p.m. here and online via Zoom.
Great, excellent. See you all then.
Thanks, everyone.